Well, welcome into a very special edition of The Scene. I'm your host, Bubba Starts. This is our continuing coverage of the Hurricane Helene and the rescue and relief operations. I am here with Brandon today. Brandon's part of our team. Brandon will be actually driving into Tennessee.
Yes. Yep. Correct.
Yep. So Brandon is our driver, donating some of his time. We got a trailer that we're going to be filling up in the Omaha area. Brandon, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself to everybody and just kind of give us a little bit of kind of what brought us to this point.
Okay. So my name's Brandon Brammer, and I own a small trucking company in Omaha, Nebraska, Heavy B Hauling. And I work with Shannon, who is my dispatcher. A lot of people know her on TikTok as 605 Gemini. And so when the hurricane hit, I told her that I would like to run some loads, some FEMA loads into the affected areas, because I wanted to, help any way I could with the asset that I have. And being from a military background, I just felt like it was something that I needed to do. And so she went to work trying to find some loads to get me down into the affected zones. So we ended up, got a FEMA load out of Dallas of meals ready to eat, full trailer load, took those down to an Air Force base in Alabama. And then she found me a load out of Jackson, Mississippi. And it delivered it was supposed to go to Damascus, Virginia. And I got up to just about 30 miles away from Damascus, and they called me and rerouted me to Asheville, North Carolina. And so I hadn't gotten into the affected area at that point yet, but I quickly realized that during the rerouting process that getting into the area was almost impossible. I ended up, it was like, I think 60 miles straight south of me to Asheville. And I ended up having to drive 275 miles around to get into Asheville, from where I was at. And then, when I got about 30 miles away on Interstate 40, I was met with a roadblock, and so I had to show them my paperwork to get in, and I had to have a police escort down 40 because there was several mudslides where they had to move you over to the opposite side of the interstate to get around it. And so that was kind of the process of getting into Asheville at the time. And then it was a wastewater tanker to a refugee area that they had at their state fairgrounds. It was called the Western North Carolina Ag Center. And so I got there, and it took my breath away. I drove past Old Fort. So some of the names, that I'm saying, people recognize them from TikTok and social media. So I went past Old Fort. It's completely gone. It sits just off the interstate, and it was completely wiped away. It's just a riverbed now. Trees, houses, buildings, everything. Concrete's gone. And then I drove past Black Mountain. I didn't see a lot of it, but I did see where the river had cut through a lot of buildings and stuff. Asheville was the same way. And then when I got to the refugee center, it really took my breath away, because this was on a Sunday. So we were already 4 days into the process of, getting help to them. And there was people walking around. They just looked starstruck, like just stunned, like their world had been ripped apart and they didn't know what to do. I mean, I saw one woman that was, she had one shoe on, and I'm assuming that's because that's all she had. She probably, and she was covered in dried mud. I mean, her hair, her clothes, everything. And, it's not like they have a shower, but you don't think about that when you go into these areas. And then the other thing that really caught me off guard that I didn't think about was, cell phone coverage. We don't realize how much we rely on our cell phones in day-to-day activities. And in my semi, I have an electronic log that relies on a cell service, and I have to use that log legally to to run my clock, and I couldn't get my logs to work. I couldn't make a phone call to my wife, and I hadn't talked to her for several hours. All she knew is I was going into this area, and it was devastated. And she hadn't talked to me. I got to a T-Mobile trailer that they had at the fairgrounds that was like a temporary cell tower, and you could get about a 2-minute phone call on it before it'd kick you off. And I was able to make a phone call, and I told her, I said, here's the deal. I got to get back out of here. I don't know how many hours it's going to take me. Just know that that's what I'm doing. And I don't know which way I'm taking, but I'm going to try and work my way back west. And so at that point, I left there and drove in the dark on US Highway 74 through a national forest in the Appalachian Mountains and worked my way back to Chattanooga. So, and it took me it was raining and foggy, and there's no lights because all the power's out. There's power lines down everywhere. There's a lot of places where they've picked them up off the ground, and they're using the electric company bucket trucks to keep them up in the air so cars can pass underneath. There's just so much. I mean, it's hard to even fit it in a conversation. It's, something that really caught me on the drive in and the drive out is there's cars all over the sides of the interstate, and they have yellow tape on the mirrors, like the police have checked them. And I asked somebody at the fairgrounds what was up with that, and apparently when all this happened, it was literally like 1-2 o'clock in the morning when a lot of this water came through, and it was literally people scrambling for their lives, hopping in a car and trying to get to higher ground, and a lot of those cars got waterlogged and died once they got up onto higher ground. So it's a really surreal situation. The closest thing I can even relate it to is if people have been overseas to Iraq, Afghanistan, serving in the military. It's very much like those torn communities where buildings are just destroyed, and it's something else.
Right. And that kind of thing is something we're very protected from here in the United States, right? That total destruction that just sits, yes. Right? Like when things get destroyed here, we tear them down, rebuild. You're not used to seeing, and just devastation on this level. I mean, we're talking about thousands of square miles, tens of thousands of square miles, right? As it just yes. rips apart these little valleys. I grew up in Deadwood, South Dakota, and we have little box valleys, right? These small, narrow cut valleys that when you get the massive flooding like this, there's nowhere for the water to go. And I was born in Appalachia, not really far from where the epicenter of this was. I was born in Sewanee, Tennessee. So right on the other side of Chattanooga, right? Instead of going east into all the destruction, you go west, and I was born up in those. We used to make family trips back there, right? I'm aware of what the terrain looks like there. When I first started to see the videos coming through, it was just, there's nowhere to go. There's no, and all of the housing and dwellings are all inside of these tiny valleys because this sort of thing doesn't happen. It's a 1,000-year flood. So when you're building these cities, 200 years ago, nobody's thinking about this, right? Yep. A lot of these communities, I'm assuming, are small. I mean, it's very touristy up there, right? The Pigeon Forge, Gatlinburg, all of those areas going up into there. It's mountainous, it's resorts. These are towns that don't have a lot of infrastructure to them to begin with. Besides maybe Asheville, which is why Asheville is obviously getting the attention because it's really Correct. The only major population center that's up there. But really what we're concerned of is that there are hundreds of these towns like the one you mentioned and so many that we're seeing that have just been erased.
Yep. And it people don't think about it in the areas that we live in this part of the country, but like a town up there could be 25 to 50 people. And that's a town, and you're like you're saying there's hundreds of them, and they're up in the mountains, and you don't really see them. Like even if you get on like your Google satellite imaging or Apple Maps and you look, you really don't, because the tree cover, the canopy is so thick that you might see a building here or a building there. You don't see any of the roads, and that was something that struck me when I was trying to find my way in. It's showing me a route. I don't even see a road because it's down under the canopy of the trees. And so I can't see the cutbacks and stuff to even judge if I can get a semi in there.
Well,
I can watch the line, but the line isn't always exact with the road. And so it's like, well, can I make that curve?
Right. Well, and then, it's the landslides, the down trees, the down power lines, there's not one road that was passable, right? Like there was not one that was good,
Yeah. And just to put it in perspective for people. So, I mean, we obviously get tornadoes around here. And if you take the destruction of a tornado, like the dead center destruction, if your neighborhood got hit and you walked down to the house that took a dead hit, just imagine that 250 miles wide. And that's what it looks like. I mean, people are thinking just floods. Like that's what my wife's first thought was floods. And I was like, no, it's the amount of down trees. And we're talking big trees. They've literally went through houses. So minus the floods sweeping everything off of their foundations in a way, you've got trees that are ginormous everywhere.
Yeah, that's an old
the interstate. Yeah, the interstate was one lane getting in because there was trees laying everywhere, and they just came down and cut enough to get cars through. And it's just all littered with crushed leaves and crushed branches everywhere. And it just, it's unreal. And it's something that it's going to take decades to even make it look close to what it was. And people are like, oh, a couple years. No. Duke Energy, which is one of the big power contractors out there, has already said, they're looking at 3+ months to get basic power restoration to the major areas. And one of the guys said that just one power line, the amount of lumber they have to log to get one power line back up, you could build a mansion with. Just the amount of lumber that comes off of that area that they've got to log just to get through there to put a power line back up. And it's just when you think about how many places are up in those mountains and how many power lines have to run around in there, it just in my mind, I can't fathom how they come back from this. I really can't. And then the amount of boulders, where it's washed, it looks like a riverbed that's a quarter of a mile wide, and it's got these boulders the size of small cars, and it's thousands of them. It's like, how do you even move that? This rubble is literally feet thick.
Water.
To get down to where, the original foundations of houses were and stuff. And it's unfathomable. It really is.
And not to diminish the loss of life, but it's incredible what the power of water. In South Dakota, we had quite a bit of flooding. I mean, we have seasonal flooding, right? We have these underfit rivers like the James River that is subject to seasonal flooding. Every year it overfills its banks in the spring and it floods, right? This year we got 15 inches of rain in 24 hours. So that caused a massive thing. And really what it did was like 2 days later, as all this rain got further and further down and saturated out from the rest of the ground, right? That downriver, we had a destroyed rail bridges and everything. So we got a firsthand account of that. Northern Iowa experienced the same thing around the Mankato area. We had dam failures. So we saw a lot of this destruction on a small scale where we're at. The terrain up here is completely different than what you have in Appalachia. Appalachia is all of these small valleys, right? These very small ridges and valleys, and that's why you have 30 inches of rain. Yeah, I mean it just sloughed off these mountains, and these mountains are old bedrock with a bunch of rubble. Exactly what you said on top of them, and when you get that kind of moisture, it just washes it away. And I mean, I saw one cut where the road didn't even have a culvert under it, right? That's how little they cared about it in real time, right? And that same spot now has a 30-foot cut bank where the water was probably 25 feet deep and raging, right? So, the people who are, don't you prepare and get to high ground? And, the standard for hurricanes is to just get inside and wait it out. To get somewhere safe, you are the high ground. You are in the mountains, right? You're not thinking about the massive flooding on this. It's just crazy to see rivers going through people's houses.
And that's when that hit. I think that if I remember seeing it right, I think the National Weather Service said when it hit that area, it was still a Category 1 hurricane. You don't have Category 1 hurricanes move that far inland and stay a Category 1. They may turn into a tropical storm, but this thing still had 100-mile-an-hour winds, up in those mountains. It's just, I mean, it's and the amount of lumber, it looks like somebody took these houses and ran them through a paper shredder, and it's like toothpicks everywhere. It's plugged up everything. It's up against everything. I don't even know how you have a landfill big enough for all this.
Right.
It's just crazy.
And that's the engineering feats that we're going to go through. I mean, this might be the storm that rebuilds our country, Brandon. The amount of manpower and funding and everything that's going to take to rebuild this area. The forest, all of it, all the industries are going to have to come together to rebuild this area if it's ever to be even a semblance of what it was.
Yep.
So Brandon,
the rivers have created new paths. I mean, it's literally like they're going to have to reshape rivers or build back around differently, or it's crazy. That the river that used to be there isn't there any. Lake Lure, that river going into Lake Lure is not where it used to be anymore. It's completely changed its path.
Yeah.
So it's
just crazy. Like you said, unfathomable. I mean, how do you even wrap your head around it? Biblical flooding, 30 inches, they said, of rain, or that's just incredible. That's almost 3 feet of water. Come on. Yeah. It's 2.5 feet of
when
water.
I saw it, and when I seen it, the minute I could get cell service, I got back out and I called my wife, and it was real late at night. And I waited till the next morning, and I called Shannon up and I said, I have to do something. We have to figure something out. I have this asset that I own that a lot of people don't have. I have the ability to move things, big things, be it a flatbed or, a low boy with equipment or a dry van full of, I have this ability. I need to use it. I have to.
Well, and I had the same thing. I mean, it was Monday as I'm starting to see the videos coming back, right, as the sun is shining after the storm has moved on. And I literally watched 5 videos maybe on my phone and went, I have to do something. All summer I spent moving water around the state of South Dakota, giving it away to just event goers, right? Not knowing that the connections I was making and what we were building and this routine that we were making, right, was to serve this purpose. Right. I can literally go get a pallet of water at the drop of a hat from my partners and have it in the back of my trailer and ready to go. So the same thing. I have this ability. I am literally not doing anything else right now. Musician, full-time podcaster. I don't have to be anywhere in particular. So the same thing. Just incredibly moved by the outcrying of help. And inspired by people, Brandon, like you, like the guys in the Cajun Navy, the mountain mule pack crew, just these people that are out there doing incredible things out there. I'm not trained to go do that. I'm not a truck driver. I can't do this. But what we can do is we can coordinate a collection effort here and get those to a guy like you that has the wherewithal to get them in. So that's been really nice about meeting Shannon, about meeting you, and now we're building this, what I call a network of care, the Midwest Relief Corps, if you will, to be able to go into these affected areas and to help these people and to continue that. I mean, I already started with the mission of 3 to 6 months just to get these people through the winter, right? Like that's just the relief effort. That's not talking about rebuilding anything.
Yep. And we said, now we got another hurricane coming, that's supposed to hit Tampa, and they're talking category 4 again. And it's like, and in Florida, they're used to this. So they took a lot of their National Guard and their resources and sent it to North Carolina and East Tennessee to try and help them. They're going to have to withdraw all those resources for this impending hurricane. So,
which is exactly why the Midwest, I think it's our turn to show up, and I think we are in force. It's showing, and that's this country, that's America, that's Midwest values for sure. I mean, I think I told our local news station is like, I don't know that there's someone more equipped than a South Dakotan, especially. I mean, we deal with flooding every spring. It's hot and dry all summer. We got forest fires, and then we get blizzards all winter. Like, we're prepared for emergencies year round, not just in the case of tragedy. So it felt really easy to organize and to mobilize. And here we are, Tuesday, we're filling the truck down there in Omaha. You got the address for us down there?
Oh, I do. It is I actually just looked this up a little bit ago for somebody. Let's see here. It is 12720 Westport Parkway, and that's Omaha, Nebraska. It's in the suburb of La Vista. So that's why you keep hearing everybody say the Boot Barn in La Vista. Used to be a little town that got annexed, but so it's 12720 Westport Parkway in Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay. Well, we got that. We're going to be there with a truckload of stuff from our people. And we're definitely counting on seeing a lot of other friends. We've been letting our friends down there around the Omaha area that are going. So you got a enclosed trailer for this trip?
Yep. I've got a 53-foot enclosed dry van that TQL, which is a brokerage, Total Quality Logistics, they are providing me with that trailer, and they're working on the insurance aspect of things, since it's not technically a load that somebody is paying to move. So the insurance is a little bit different on things, but they're working on the trailer and that side of things. And so we just got to get the stuff in the trailer and get the truck down the road. So,
and this is exactly what, I kind of described to Shannon. It's almost like we're blockchaining the care network, right? That everybody just do what you do. And if we're all connected and we all stay in communication, we can get this thing done. And eventually I see it, the long-term effort is a guy, not having to take time away from his job, but maybe we can start to land these on a series of trucks, right? A pallet or two on each that can move and just stay in the process, right? Like you said,
Yep.
decades these people are going to need help. And
Yes.
like I said, I got deep roots down there. I'm not going to forget about these. I felt terrible, when Lahaina happened. It was just so far away. I was trying to mobilize and do some things to help our friends in Maui, and I just wasn't able to do what I wanted to. And I think when this one hit and just, it was too much. It was too much to watch and to know the devastation. And that's without even including the lack of, federal government response, right? And
Yep.
you continue to see this has to be the largest privately funded relief effort in history.
Oh, yes, for sure. And that's something I keep telling people, and I'm not trying to be pushy about the donations, but, you go buy your $5 coffee in the morning, or you go buy a pack of cigarettes, or, whatever your habit is, and it's like, I get it. People are, times are tough, but $1, $2, a case of water, it's not that much in the grand scheme of things when you look at what these people are going through. Oh, I can't take off of work. Well, you know what? I mean, they're taking off of work the next 10 years because
Right.
their job's not there anymore. It's
Right.
literally gone. Their house
Right.
is gone. The city's gone. So,
Everything.
I mean, like, really, a week? I get it.
Right.
Times are tough. Move
Right.
some money around. We can figure this out. We can all come together as a community and figure this out.
Definitely.
So,
Well, and I think we're starting. I mean, most of the shows we play are free shows anyway, but why just get in the habit of bringing a can of food with you? And we kind of want to turn all the venues that we play into collection sites of their own. And then as we're touring through them, hey, thanks for gathering up this box of stuff. We're going to throw it in the truck with the other boxes of stuff. And then we're going to have a pallet to take down to Brandon in Omaha, and he's going to take it to people who really freaking need it. And then
Yep.
beyond just the, it doesn't end with Hurricane Helene. This is just the start of a care network that's going to survive all of our lifetimes. And so that the next time we don't have to mobilize this whole thing, we just have to activate. And we're already ready to go. So I'm looking forward to growing this network. I'm so proud of you, Brandon. I feel for you, the things that you've seen. I know you're a veteran as well. And we thank you for your service, and we thank you even more for the service that you're doing right now as a private citizen. It's amazing what we're all a part of right now.
Yes, thank you. I appreciate that. And like I said, it takes everybody to step in, and there's nobody more important than the person that you're looking at in the mirror, because that's what it takes, is each and every one of us. So
Definitely, Brad. Well, you nailed it, man. We're going to check in with you for updates. I don't know if it'll be weekly or monthly or whatever it is, but we're going to make sure that we get together on a phone call for the podcast to let people know how things are going. And really appreciate you, Brandon. Thanks for being on the show.
Yep. Thank you. I appreciate it. Have a good evening.